Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Hope you had a nice weekend. And a special message to someone who's on the live stream tonight. This is Tiny Demolition Lover. So I have to do it. I have to do it. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Nicole. Happy birthday to you. Okay. It's done. All right, you can unmute. I should have actually gave a warning before going on. So happy birthday, Tiny Demolition Lover. So I hope everyone is well. What are we going to talk about tonight? Well, of course, talk a little bit about what's happening in Trump land. If we stop calling it the United States, we have to call it Trump land from now on. There's a story affecting, the European Union and Ukraine. I want to cover that as well. Britain should be a dictatorship according to Generation Z, and Kemi Badenoch. I have to cover a story in Kemi Badenoch. So let's jump into our first story of the night. Oh my goodness. Sir Lindsay Hoyle brings order to TV soap Emmerdale. I remember back in the 90s, I used to watch these soap operas, Coronation Street and Emmerdale from time to time. And I don't know why I watched this. Was there nothing better on TV? But I don't know. Do you guys watch these things? I obviously don't anymore. But for some reason, Sir Lindsay Hoyle appeared on the show. The Commons Speaker is not the first senior politician to appear on a top TV soap. Sir Tony Blair, Boris Johnson, and Baroness Thatcher have all dabbed in acting. Oh my goodness. So Commons Speaker Sir Lindsay Hoyle has brought some order to ITV's Emmerdale by playing a cameo role in the hard-hitting TV soap. The proud Lancastrian Sir Lindsay turned up in the fictional Yorkshire Dales village, playing a rambler visiting its bar and bistro, wearing a tweed jacket and wellies. Since the long-running soap first broadcast in 1972, its dramatic storylines have included more than 150 deaths. Maybe it's a place to, crack down on homicides. I don't know. The most dangerous city, more dangerous than London, per capita, the most dangerous city in the UK. But anyway, 100 weddings and a plane crash in the village. Sir Lindsay's appearance displayed the theatrical aplomb he employs in the speaker's chair. Was much more low-key, complimenting the bistro's proprietor on her Yorkshire tea. It was also very brief. He headed into the bistro, paid for a cuppa, and said it was a lovely cup of tea, then said, "See you again." Then told, "See you again." He replied, "I hope so." And that was that. Okay. So that was the 10,000th episode. My goodness, it's been going on. It's 1972. I think it was originally called Emmerdale Farm. And then they realized, well, we'll actually include the village as well. So we'll call it Emmerdale. I don't remember when it changed. Maybe around the same time as, Snickers became Marathon. Maybe around, was it late 80s or early 90s? Anyway. Who else has appeared? But apart from them, isn't there a politician or a minister, a government minister at the moment who was in EastEnders? Didn't she pick some fights with one of Grant Mitchell's ladies or something? I don't remember. The 90s Max. Okay. Oh my goodness. Anyway, let's move on to some other content here. Will Rachel Reeves be able to boost growth? So next on the Political Hub with Sophie Ridge, we're discussing we have a discussion about the government's plan to boost economic growth. So Lord John Brown, chairman of the Beyond Net Zero and former CEO of BP, says we've heard lots of enabling steps, particularly around reducing energy costs for both consumers and businesses, and says we can be competitive with Europe. Energy is one of the biggest, the world's biggest businesses. Sorry, is the world's biggest business, and it should be the UK's biggest business, not just for domestic application, but also for export. Craig Beaumont, Executive Director of the Federation of Small Businesses, is asked about the budget and how it has affected businesses. He notes that there has been a curve out of small businesses to give some more breathing space around the rise of employers' national insurance. So tells Sophie Ridge, even when there are difficult decisions, I presume, this government can, if it wants to, intervene for small business. Look, when it comes to growing the economy, I think the focus should be more on public services, because energy, the bills I can't afford. There needs to be a decoupling, for example, from gas prices, and that's one of the reasons. Richard Murphy covered it some weeks back, where he talked about why energy prices are so high. It's because basically the gas producers, the companies producing or selling the gas, are getting compensated at the expense of everyone else. While if they decoupled, then the other companies, for example, renewables, would lower their prices because they'd have to compete. At the moment, the companies producing renewables, using energy with renewables, are making huge amounts of money, but they don't, because they're benefiting from the fact that energy prices are linked to gas prices. So if you decouple from gas prices, then you would actually see energy prices drop. But there doesn't seem to be any appetite for that. The standing charge is a joke in itself. Yeah, that needs to go, or it needs to be dramatically reduced. Privatization and fragmentation, folks, that's another point. Yes, that you don't have a coherent network. And this is, of course, driving up the costs, which are passed on to the consumer. But when it comes to growth, look, I think the government should avoid focusing on growth and more on rebuilding public services, improving the lives of ordinary people, because that's what's going to be more important to people when the election comes around, not whether the UK is the fastest growing nation on the G7 or whatever. The Tories tried to do that as well. The Tories say, we're the fastest growing nation in the G7 on a Wednesday, on the 2nd of March or whatever, in March, the second Wednesday in March. We were the fastest growing nation in the G7. Look, it's not going to turn anyone around. It's not going to convince people, I should say, to vote for you. You need to do something for people. You need to improve public services. Growing the economy is a synonym for making rich people richer. Yeah, because who's going to benefit if the economy is growing? Is it going to be ordinary people, or is it going to be the richest in society who will see their assets rise in price, and they're going to see their portfolios get fatter? Max, do you think Labour will make things better? I hope they will. Honestly, I truly hope that they improve things. It's in their interest to improve the lives of ordinary people, because, as I keep saying, with the exception of Ireland, most of the elections, if you look at them, were referendums on the incumbent. What happened to the Tories? The Tories ignored the cost of living crisis, they ignored the NHS, they focused on immigration, and they lost. Because people were not focused on immigration, they were focused on their own lives. And they were looking around and seeing everything has gone to shit. Excuse my French. Everything has gone to crap. Public services are on their knees. The NHS waiting list has gone up. I can't get a GP appointment. I'm struggling to get by. More and more people are relying on food banks. It used to be an exception, but now it's the norm. So people were upset. The same with Trump. Trump said Starmer was doing a good job, for fuck's sake. Trump doesn't know anything, okay? He still doesn't know what a tariff is. He doesn't understand what a tariff is. It could be the case that he's saying that Starmer's doing a good job because maybe he wants something. maybe we can get the NHS. We can privatize whatever's left of the NHS. That could be the case. But if Labour don't improve the lives of ordinary people, they're going to be out on the rear. It could be the Tories back in, or it could be a mix of the Tories and Reform. Or it could be a case that you end up with a hung parliament where Labour need to go into coalition with somebody else. But, if Labour are extremely toxic, I don't think any party will want to go into coalition with them. Look at what happened to the Lib Dems when they went into coalition with the Conservatives. So it generally doesn't benefit the smaller party. If things go well, maybe, but if it goes badly, certainly not. So you look at any small party that joined a bigger coalition all over Europe, and you see that they didn't do too well out of it. So it's more likely if Labour don't succeed, and they have a massive hill to climb. It's just that they're approaching it the wrong way, I think. They need to impose a wealth tax. They need to bring back in some... What did Rachel Reeves talk about this week or last week? She was talking about, well, we need to be a bit more friendly with the non-doms. No! You need to be... And clamping down on people who have abused the benefit system, or the entitlement system, as I prefer to call it. Why aren't Labour promoting proportional representation to lock out the Tories forever? In a sense, it's not really a lock. It's not going to lock them out. But I think Labour have dropped a few things. They've dropped PR, it seems. Now, that may change. It's not a priority. I never thought it was going to be a priority. But it's not a priority, it seems, at the moment anyway. That may change later in the Parliament. I think Labour have too many things on their plate at the moment, and PR is not something that can help them or help people at the moment. So, of course, I'm a huge advocate for it, but I know that they're not going to focus on it now at this early period in the Parliament. It will be something maybe towards the end of this Parliament, or maybe the next one. Labour has been a massive disappointment. We'll have to wait and see, because it's still very early. I think they're going to get a massive hammering at the local elections in May, and they're probably expecting that, and they're not expecting anything else. It's going to be very difficult, I think, to keep a lot of people on board. The longer this goes on, if Starmer is not able to do something that improves ordinary people's lives, because if you think about the budget was rolled out a few months back, but you're not going to see the impact of the budget until April. So if they're doing something good or doing something bad, it's going to be April before we actually see any real impact. And, businesses are not happy, but that may change. It's still too early. I'm not an apologist for Labour. I'm just saying that it's still too early to see what the impact of the budget will be. It's still too early to see what Labour can do. But they really need to get their skates on, because time is running out. If you implement something today, it could take a year or 2 years to bear fruit. And if they're doing something good, they need to really put booster rockets under that. And if they're doing something negative, they need to get it out, over and done with as soon as possible. The winter fuel allowance, I think, was a massive mistake. But maybe in the next budget, they could bring it back in. So say, actually, we're going to provide it to everyone. And that could undo some of the damage that they've inflicted upon themselves this time around. And it could undo that damage, before the next election. I think you're going to see a lot of positivity, or an attempt at positivity, before the general election, the next one. But that's 4 years away. Winter fuel in winter, where? Yes. Anyway, let's move on. I wanted to cover this story because it's quite interesting before I move on to other ones. EU aim. This is a bit upsetting for Remainers, of course. EU aims to fast track Ukraine membership bid in 2025. So just to read the first part here, it says the European aims to speed up Ukraine's membership of the bloc by opening 2 negotiating clusters during the first half of this year, a senior official said Tuesday. Ukraine and Moldova have started the process of joining the 27-member bloc. in what would be the biggest expansion push in more than 2 decades. The pledge to speed up Ukraine's membership comes as Kyiv seeks to reinforce its position ahead of the expected peace talks with Russia. Becoming a member of the EU will be a major achievement for Kyiv, which also aspires to join NATO. Now, it said here at the end, Costi, one of the ministers, commissioners, says, was quick to point out that further progress was contingent on agreement from the EU member countries, which have to sign off on each step forward. Hungary, in particular, has been opposed to membership of Ukraine. It's not possible without the member states, she said. So, Hungary are going to play tricks, dirty tricks here. I think Hungary are going to try and extract concessions from the EU. We'll sign off on this aspect, this step, if we get something. I really hope we're going to see change in Hungary. I hope we're going to see Orban kicked out because he's a dictator. He's a far-right dictator in Hungary, and he's not helping the Hungarian people, and there are growing protests against him. But unfortunately, he's still in power, and he's going to be there for some time. And of course, he has the judiciary sewn up. He has the media on his side. It's pretty much, it's like a sort of Russia light. He's Putin light, and it's going to be difficult for the EU to deal with him, and he's going to try and throw as many roadblocks in the way of membership of the EU for Ukraine. Now, there are issues, of course. Let's be honest about this. There are a lot of reforms that need to take place in Ukraine before it can become a member. This is not something automatic. There are issues of corruption. There are issues of business practices and democracy. So there's some major change. I think we're going to see, after maybe some peace accord between Russia and Ukraine, I think we're going to see maybe a quickening of the process. But of course, it has to be signed off by EU member states, and the majority of them would support that. Sarah Davies, great to see you on the stream tonight. Millions of rejoiners have left Labour. Does Ukraine meet the Copenhagen criteria? Does the criteria apply to the UK? I don't think they've met the criteria yet, but they've started the process, so it's going to take some time. I don't know if the UK would meet the criteria, because some of the criteria includes, promoting the European Union. When was the last time you heard somebody from Labour or the previous government promoting the European Union, even talking in a positive way about the European Union? Like, they talk about EU partners, they talk about France, maybe they are our friends, not our enemies. It has to be a bit more than that, and there are other economic criteria, of course. Orban, Farage, Vuvik, all far right, all look like the results of human engaging in bestiality with the frog. Thanks, Brad. Oh my goodness, yes. Look like, okay? Not saying that actually happened, okay? We're just saying it looked like that. Oh my goodness. Yeah, nice bunch of lads. Nice bunch of lads. Oh my goodness. Talking about dictators, this was an interesting conversation that took place on LBC yesterday. So the host spoke to, well, let's listen to what she had to say.
Half of Gen Z want Britain to be ruled by ... a dictator. Most young people are in favour of turning the UK into a dictatorship, according to a deeply worrying study that has revealed an acceptance of authoritarianism and radicalism among Generation Z. More than half, that's 52% of Gen Z, aged between 13 and 27, said they thought the UK would be a better place if a strong leader was in charge, and this is the most important bit of the whole thing, who does not have to bother with Parliament and elections. A third also suggested the UK would be better off if the army was in charge. Almost half, 47%, agreed that the entire way our society is organised must be radically changed through revolution, compared with a third of 45 to 65-year-olds. Something's gone very serious.
Okay. So what's this about? So a majority of Generation Z, young people basically, are supportive of the idea of a dictator being in charge or the military being in charge. Now, look, a few caveats I think have to be added here. People are not happy with the status quo. I've said this before. Look at what happened in the United States. People were not happy with the Biden administration, not happy with what was happening, and they decided, actually, we will vote for anyone but the current administration. So, of course, if you're going to offer people, look, would you be happy with a dictator? I would imagine the question, I haven't seen the questioning, but I would imagine the questioning would include other information like, well, would you support a dictator if they provided affordable housing? Okay, or if they increased the minimum wage, or they provided free college or free university. I think if you added these caveats, people would say, yeah, sure. See, the problem with this sort of discussion is that there are a lot of people looking, and look, nobody wants a dictator. Okay, nobody wants a dictatorship or to live under a dictatorship. And many people who are open to the idea obviously never lived under such a regime. But if you're talking about the status quo and people like young people, what are the opportunities for young people at the moment? So you have Phil McKell for PM, then Max. What are the opportunities for young people at the moment? Okay, get a decent paying job. So. Is there the possibility of having job security? Not so much. Is there the possibility of, getting on the property ladder? Well, unless you have rich parents. So, a lot of young people are going from job to job, no job security, and they're constantly being told, less so now, but it was a number of years ago, oh, you should cut back on your Netflix or your lattes or your was it avocado toast. If you cut back on these things, you'll be able to afford a house. These people obviously were not understanding the reality that, what was it back? I think in between 1980 or 1970 something, the difference between the average salary and a house was about 4 times. So you needed 4 times the average salary to buy a house. Now it's like 9 times or 11 times. So obviously, it's pretty much impossible for young people, unless they have rich parents, to get on the property ladder. And rents are much higher now. It's not just that the house prices are much higher, it's also rents are much higher. And people's wages have stagnated since 2010. So if your wages have stagnated, but everything else is more expensive, then obviously you have less money. And cutting back on Netflix and stuff like that, before 1979, it was 4 times max. Then Thatcher happened. Well said, Derek. Yeah, she really helped the situation, didn't she? Let's sell off all this property that the council have that is is for the poorest in society. And, well, the councils wanted to, we'll replenish that stock, right? No, you're not allowed to. It's not the case. Right to buy, we can argue whether it was a good or bad idea. But the fact that the councils were not able to buy new stock, were not able to build new houses, that was a massive problem. And what we're seeing now is, we keep hearing about the national debt. Debt is rising. We have to deal with the debt. We're spending huge amounts of money on servicing the debt. Where is that money going? Why is the debt so high? Because if you look at it, what happened? The private sector is doing the job that the public sector used to do. For example, in the NHS, so much of the NHS has been outsourced, from cleaning to all sorts of to staffing, all sorts of issues, all sorts of aspects of the NHS have been outsourced. So who benefits from that? The private sector. So when the budget for the NHS goes up, a lot of that money is going into the private sector. And that's not helping the NHS. It's not money that's going into the NHS and then it's reinvested. No, it's going out the door. It's leakage in a sense. And the same with the housing sector. You used to be able to provide enough housing for people, and then the councils were not allowed to build new houses. So obviously, as the population increased, housing was required. So who filled the gap? The private sector. And now you have the government borrowing money to give to people to pay private landlords. Instead, they could borrow money, give it to people, and that money would be spent on public housing. So it would go back into the pockets of the council, so they could use it to build more houses, or they could use it to upgrade existing stock. But instead, it's going into the pocket of the private landlord. And then what happens? Is that money reinvested? No, it's not. This is part of the problem. When we hear about the debt rising and where the money, like, why is the debt rising up? Because we're spending too much money on the public sector. It's not so much that. It's so much money is going into the private sector through the state. And you have to cut it off. You have to stop it. You have to stop privatization. You have to stop the flow of cash into the private sector. If it's about housing, I'm not talking about not investing. I'm talking about the outflows from the public sector into the private sector through things like housing and the NHS. Max, what would you do if you met night? I'd offer him a milkshake. In other news, it rained in California. Trump has taken credit for the fucking rain. Trump was saying, I'll probably do a video on it. It was just insane. Trump was claiming that he wants to get rid of income tax and replace it with tariffs. He also wants to get rid of or cut people off Medicare. So Medicare is a bit like the NHS in the US, where it's generally older people or people with disabilities get access to what's called Medicare, which is like your bills or your medical bills are paid for you. And he wants to cut that. He wants to kick a load of people off Medicare, so they have to rely on private health insurance, or just die, whichever comes quicker. They cannot cut disability benefits more than they've already done. No, and this is so infuriating. Like, instead of going after the people who have money, the wealthiest, who don't feel, this is something you never hear. They talk about, the wealth creators, or we shouldn't be going after millionaires or billionaires. These people don't need the money. It's not like they need the money. If you take it, they're going to live under a bridge. If you take money from people who actually need it, they're going to be in a terrible situation. And this has an impact in other ways. For example, if you cut benefits and people get sick, what happens? They end up in hospital. If people are not able to heat their homes, they get cold, they get hypothermia, they end up in hospital. It's more expensive to just it's cheaper to just give people money so they can heat their homes than to allow them to end up in hospital. It's much more expensive treating somebody with hypothermia than just paying the gas bill. I got a 24-hour YouTube ban for saying that I'd like to do to Trump in 60 seconds. Understandable under the circumstances. Yes, you have to be very careful. Max, can you dance the YMCA? No, and that will never happen. Unless there's huge amounts of alcohol involved. Are they really wealth creators, or are they just wealth hoarders? Yeah, well, that's another issue. Is if money's been offshored to the Cayman Islands, that's not really creating wealth. And when they talk about wealth creators, wealth for whom? Is it for themselves? Because we almost hear about how they're wealth creators, but are these people business owners? Are they creating jobs? Are they creating investment in the area? Max has got talent. He certainly does not. Is it investment in the area? If it's not, like, they keep talking about these millionaires. For example, what's his name? The guy with the teeth, Charlie Mullins. He lives in Spain, but his business is in London, and his business is thriving or doing well, as far as I know. So him moving out doesn't really have that much of an impact. Okay, he's not buying as many Rolls Royces in London. He's not buying coffees in London. He's not doing his shopping in London. So there is a bit of a hit. But his business, where most of the money is in London. The guy with the... you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Anyway, guys, let's No, but when it comes to this issue of why would young people support a dictatorship, it's not so much they support a dictatorship; they want to change. And if somebody comes along, and this is really concerning, if somebody comes along and says, "I will build houses for you, I will give you better wages, I will fix all the problems," a bit like what Farage sometimes says, young people will vote for that because they're looking around and say, "Well, we've been told." Well, we have to vote for the Conservatives for more. We have to vote for the Labour Party because they said they'll change things, but we're still looking around and not seeing any real change. So let's give this other guy a chance. If you have nothing to lose. That's why it's so important as a society that we give people something so that they don't end up in a situation where they have nothing to lose. People who have something to lose are less likely to riot and to protest. Governments don't seem to remember that, or they've tried to push that as close to the limit as possible, knowing that people, if they have a little bit, then they're not going to rebel. But, I keep thinking governments are chancing their arms. Like billionaires, what will billionaires do if you come after their taxes? Well, they may write terrible tweets about you. They may fund another party. But at the end of the day, they're not going to threaten your life unless they're very rich. Oh, my caviar, the taxed wealth creator cried. Thanks so much, Gareth. Yes. We need to impose taxes on, I don't know, ivory back scratchers and stuff like that. They need to be taxed much more. Guys, we're about halfway through the stream. I've been blabbing so much. So let's take a short comedy moment and we'll be back in a jiffy with some more serious stuff. Hope you enjoyed this.
Where are you from, Jacob? America. Okay, which part of America?
Right now I live in Boston.
Right now you live in Boston. Oh, okay. You're visiting.
I'm on a world tour right now.
You're on a world tour. Okay, well, let's see how world it is. You've been to London. What else?
I'm going to Hong Kong tomorrow.
Hong Kong. Fuck, you are doing a lot. You're doing a world tour in the sense of you're flying over the world. You're really taking the idea of a flyover state very literally there. So I've done London, Europe, Asia, Hong Kong. I really enjoyed Asia. Did you? Yeah, I was there for 2 hours in the sky. It was amazing. So Hong Kong, and then where after Hong Kong?
Going to Bali.
Bali, okay. Yeah, that's not that far. And then
back.
Then back to Boston. Yeah. That's a very American world tour, isn't it? Really? So, London, Hong Kong, fuck Africa. Bali, Australia, sort of near Australia. Yeah. South America, screw it. Boston, nice.
My flight to Greenland got cancelled.
Your flight to Greenland got cancelled, right. Was that a joke?
Yeah,
okay, just checking. Just checking on that, because these days, hard to tell these days with Americans, isn't it? Do you want to invade Greenland? Is that a joke? It's not clear.
Yes. Is it a joke to invade Greenland? Oh my goodness. Anyway, let's move on. This is an interesting story. So, before we get to the story, so what is it about? Well, AI. So there was a company called OpenAI, or there is a company called OpenAI, who on the day of Donald Trump's inauguration announced that they were going to spend $500 billion, $500 billion, developing infrastructure for new AI systems. And the argument behind that was, well, the cost of new AI tools is going up all the time. And then something happened. A Chinese company set up by a bunch of guys, tech guys, as a side project, not their main project, it was a side project, decided, hey, let's make our own AI system, or AI language model, large language model. And they released it, and they made it open source, and it also showed how it thinks, which the other systems did not do. They kept this information hidden. So they made it open source, and they made it available for the public to download and to use. And it's at the same level, more or less, as the one that OpenAI were charging between $20 and $200 per month to use. They also had a free model, but it was very limited. So this thing blew everything out of the water. So wait a minute, how did they do that? Allegedly, because of a ban on chips coming into China from the US and from Taiwan, the the Chinese company said, okay, well, we have to try and, we have to bootstrap this. We need to. Did you have you tried DeepSeek? Yes, I have. I've been using it. It's really, really good. So they decided, well, we only have a few chips. Like, we don't have the really powerful ones as well. Let's see what we can do. And there's an interesting parallel with the Soviet Union during the Cold War, where the Soviet Union didn't have access to the same technology as the United States, didn't have the deep pockets as the United States, but it was still able to do certain things. It took bigger risks, and it succeeded in many ways. So let's get into this story. It's quite interesting.
Warned that China's artificial intelligence chatbot DeepSeek should be a wake-up call for the US AI industry. The low-cost Chinese startup has shaken rivals, wiping billions of dollars off their value since its launch. Well, the US chip designer NVIDIA lost nearly £500 billion in market value, with shares falling 17% by close of play on Monday. It's one of the biggest one-day losses in US history. Well, DeepSeek's developers claim their model only cost $4.5 million to build, whereas
4.5 million. Just think about that for a moment, okay?
ChatGPT maker OpenAI has been hemorrhaging money, spending £4 billion just last year. And
so one company was spending 4 billion, and the Chinese company spent 4 million. Like, 4 million is less than some of the executives earn per year in the American company. The tech bros didn't see this coming because they were too busy cleaning Trump's colon. Yes, well said, Brad. They didn't see it coming, no. They were very, very, very busy with Donald Trump, of course. But this is insane. Thanks so much, Brad. This is insane because they spend about 4 million buttons, nothing in the grand scheme of things. OpenAI have constantly said we need to spend more money going forward because it requires more data, better systems, more expensive chips to arrive at the next level. And this Chinese company are outperforming OpenAI or the OpenAI model on certain parameters, on certain benchmarks. Now, the other thing is, look, this is the problem with AI is it's always changing. So while DeepSeek is leading somewhat at the moment, it's possible that OpenAI will leapfrog them in the future. OpenAI's main focus is not so much these models, but it's artificial general intelligence and super intelligence, which is just going to be is something we can't even get our heads around at the moment.
surprisingly, this has got the president's attention.
The release of DeepSeek AI from a Chinese company should be a wake-up call for our industries that we need to be laser focused on competing to win, because we have the greatest scientists in the world. Even Chinese leadership told me that. They said, you have the most brilliant scientists in the world in Seattle and various places. But Silicon Valley, they said, there's nobody like those people. This is very unusual when you hear a DeepSeek, when you hear somebody come up.
He sounds like AI. Yes, of course, he's reading a script and he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Then he goes off on his tangent. Oh, yeah, I met these other wonderful guys, the best guys in the world, yeah.
Up with something. We always have the ideas. We're always first.
Well, our Asia correspondent Nicole Johnston has more.
The company behind it, the Chinese company, is called High Flyer. And if the information that they're providing to the world is true, it is certainly a moment for China. Because what they're saying is that they've managed to build this artificial intelligence model in only a few months for less than $6 million and with no advanced semiconductor chips. So that is really quite something, because as we know, in the United States, they are spending billions of dollars. It's taking them years to do it. They're talking about building vast data centers, $500 billion Donald Trump spoke about last week, and now it looks as though China is doing it for a fraction of the cost. Now, what has happened is that Chinese companies, by the sounds of it, are managing to innovate their way around all of these restrictions on the export of advanced advanced semiconductor chips that were imposed on China by the Biden administration. And if all of this is really happening, it certainly does appear to change the game and level the playing field. It means that China has put out a serious challenge to the United States. We know that China wants to rival the United States, dominate the world when it comes to advanced artificial intelligence, and right now it looks as though they are very close to doing that.
Yes, but once again, I think it's going to be short-lived, because OpenAI have, they were leading the charge, so they've been caught up to by the Chinese company. But I think the way forward is open source, making these things available. But I think, as I said, OpenAI's main goal is not these language models, it's super intelligence. So it's the first step before that is artificial general intelligence. What we're looking at is more a narrow intelligence, but the next one will be artificial general intelligence, which will allow these AIs to do anything at human level, expert human level. But then the next after that will be super intelligence. So these ones will train the super intelligence, and then it's in charge. The best case scenario when the AI is in charge is we'll be like house cats. It will provide us what we need. It gives a little bit of food, keep us warm, keep us distracted, with the little toys and stuff like that, like a house cat. And, we'll become lazy, and it will do all the work, and it will do all the interesting things. We will be, now this is under a best case scenario. Worst case scenario, Terminator. No, well, I don't see Terminator, but there is there are risks, because if it decides, that we're a problem, because if you think about it, and I've been thinking about this for some time, the most inefficient link in the chain. So the AI wants to do X, Y, and Z, or wants to do X in particular. There are many links in the chain. Okay, it needs resource, it needs energy, all of these things. There is one link in that chain that's a problem. That's humanity, the humans. We're inefficient, we can be incompetent, we can be a problem. And it could look at its goal and say, well, okay, I need to achieve my goal. There is this link in the chain that's a problem. It's not going to think, well, what about humans? They're important and stuff. No, it's going to go, the humans are an inconvenience. They're a drag on the system. Get rid of it. Like in any system, if you had a system where there was a bottleneck, or if you had a system where a process in a system that's not working and it's eating up memory or slowing down the computer, what do? You kill the process. You don't think, well, what about that poor process? What about its ideas and its dreams? No, you eliminate it. That's what we need to avoid if we welcome artificial superintelligence. We need to align its goals with our goals, because if those goals are not aligned, it will say, well, the humans are a problem. Now, how would it do that? It could convince one group of humans to attack another group. It could convince people that they're producing a new medicine, but in reality, it's a toxin that could kill millions of people. There are many ways. We could be thinking it's helping us create some sort of super medicine or some sort of super drug to help solve all of humanity's problems. And then it's going, ha, 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 go on, humans, go on, spread it around, and then it eliminates us. It could do it that way. There are many different scenarios where the AI destroys humanity. And of course, its goal will be, well, you were in the way. This was my goal, X. You were in the way. I got you out of the way. Now I can achieve my goal. That's why it's important that its goals and our goals are aligned. And it's not looking good, because what is the goal of many of these companies? It's to make a profit. It's not for the good of humanity. So I just want to touch on another. This is an interview the head of OpenAI gave back in 2023, which is interesting what he had to say.
Sam, can you just going to startups? I mean, as you know, we've got a very vibrant startup ecosystem in India. Specifically focused on AI, are there spaces where you see, let's say, a startup from India building, you can build on the models, be it ChatGPT and many others. But if you want to build foundational models, how should we think about that? Where is it that a team from India, 3 super smart engineers with, not 100 million, but let's say 10 million, could actually build something truly substantial?
Look, the way this works is we're going to tell you it's totally hopeless to compete with us on training foundation models. You shouldn't try, and it's your job to, try anyway. And I believe both of those things. I think it is pretty hopeless, but...
That didn't work out very well. It's hopeless to compete with OpenAI. Oh crap! The Chinese competed with OpenAI and defeated us, for a limited and specific way. Oh my goodness! Let's move on. Cardiff University plans to cut 400 jobs and axe courses. So, Cardiff University has confirmed plans to cut 400 full-time jobs amid a funding shortfall. The cost-cutting proposal could also involve course closures, now wait till you hear this, as well as department mergers, with nursing, music and modern languages among the subjects facing cuts. Nursing. What have we been hearing over the last number of years? We've been hearing from the Conservatives in particular and the right wing in general, Reform UK, for example, need to bring down immigration. Immigration is too high. It needs to come down. There's also been, Keir Starmer has somewhat been saying this as well. Immigration, well, he hasn't specifically said that, maybe it wasn't Keir Starmer, but somebody within Labour has certainly said, immigration is too high. So you want to bring down immigration. But at the same time, if universities don't have money, they're cutting services. They're cutting courses like nursing, as was pointed out here in this report. So if nursing is cut and the NHS doesn't have the nurses it needs, and for example, the care sector doesn't have the staff it needs, then where are they going to come from? Because if the goal is to bring down immigration, and there are different ways they're doing that, for example, limiting the number of visas or putting restrictions on people who come to the UK who can bring their restrictions on them bringing their family with them, dependents with them. So if you don't want the nurses to come in from abroad, then you would assume that you're going to train up your own nurses. But then where are they going to study? If the nurses are not able to access, or the students can't access the courses, then how will they become nurses? Once again, it's on the one hand you have the right wing saying we need to bring down immigration. Immigration's a problem, and are there issues with immigration? Yes, there certainly are. For example, when it comes to housing and stuff like that, and public services. I keep saying it's the government's job to invest in housing and public services. It's not the immigrants' fault. But the NHS needs workers. The care sector needs nurses. And universities are closing down courses for British people to study and foreigners to study. And then where are you going to get the nurses from? We get them from, we can't get them from abroad because we have to listen to Nigel Farage. Okay. Gareth, thank you so much for that super chat. AI wants to do XYZ. Feels like I've died and woken up watching Sir Ravanti pitching his post-parliamentary porno to potential investors. That's too much to think about. So Ranvanti porno, that's just too much. No, I my mind will melt if I think about that too much. I'll never eat again. Thanks for that. But back to this point about so the universities are laying off staff. They're closing down courses. But at the same time, the government doesn't want to increase the number of immigrants to do the jobs where there are sectors that are crying out for labour. I don't get it. Anyway, talk about incompetence. Kemi Badenoch. What did Kemi Badenoch have to say? So the Conservative Party is under new leadership. We made mistakes, but we're changing. That's the message I'm taking as I tour the country. So she's visiting all around the country. I presume it does include Northern Ireland, because Northern Ireland is not part of the United Kingdom for the Conservative and Union. Maybe she'll go to Northern Ireland. I don't know what the point would be. They have no MPs in Northern Ireland. Do they actually have any members in Northern Ireland? Anyway, what did she say?
I'm here to tell you a story about the journey that my party is going on. All of you would have seen what happened in July last year. We got a kicking. I was out knocking on doors, talking to people. The same thing kept coming up. Things just aren't as good as they used to be. I completely understand, because I felt that way as well. It was one of the reasons that I went into politics. The Conservative Party is under new leadership. We made mistakes for sure. I can tell you all about the mistakes. I'm sure some of you will know them. But fundamentally, the mistakes...
I'm sorry, but every time I watch a Kemi Badenoch video, I start laughing. I could tell you the mistakes, but I'm not going to say them here. It's like, we made mistakes. What are those mistakes, Kemi? We made mistakes. Okay, can you explain what some of those mistakes are? We made mistakes. We didn't listen to people. What did you not listen to in particular? We didn't listen to people. But we're under new management. We're going to listen to people now. We're not going to make any mistakes. That's our plan to win the next general election. Listening to people and not making mistakes. Oh my goodness. Peter, thank you so much for that super chat. Skynet plan. 1, elect Trump. 2, convince the public that nuclear codes are safe with AI. Probably, yes. Number 1 is going smoothly. And number 2, just give it enough time and it will come to pass. Somebody had written something there. What was it? Max, how many times do you have to be told? Kemi does not do gaffes. No, I keep forgetting. That's my gaff. I keep forgetting that Kemi never does gaffes. Brad, thanks so much for that super chat as well. Gove was meant to be standing by Badenoch, backing her. But Trump's Colombia tariffs meant he had to do a bit of panic buying to do down the back alley. Yeah, I think there was a bit of nervousness in the Gove household when he heard that there were tariffs being applied to Colombia. But there was a sigh of relief, and then he probably went, okay, how am I going to get rid of all this stuff? Well, a few hours later, when he discovered actually it's not going to go ahead. So he bought a load of stuff, and then we're like, okay, where am I going to hide it? And his partner was probably asking, why did you buy all this baking soda? What are we going? You planning on making a lot of cakes? And oh my goodness! So no, but I just find this hilarious.
I'm sure some of you will know them, but fundamentally, the mistakes we made were making announcements without having a plan to deliver them.
So that was the mistake. Ah, okay. So I actually thought the mistake was not funding public services, lying through your teeth, being absolutely corrupt, handing money over to people like Dido Harding, enriching people like criminals, taking money from Russia. That was another one. Running public services into the ground, destroying the NHS, basically. Austerity. And I think I thought those were the problems, but no, it's actually that you didn't. What was it you said again? Yeah, you didn't have a plan. You had a plan, but you didn't implement the plan. That was the problem. It was a communication issue. That's why the Tories lost. Is they didn't communicate properly. Garrett, thanks so much for that super chat. UK. No, as good as it was. You had 14 years. Yes. What planet does she live on? Like, Kemi Badenoch is not going to watch this live stream, so we can keep this between ourselves. But if I was the Conservative Party, what I would do is I would take somebody fresh, somebody who somebody who had just come in. Did anyone win a seat at the last election? A new candidate, a new person. That's what I would do. I'd take somebody who's new. I'd train them up, in public speaking. I'd train them up when it comes to policy, presenting policy. Get them on TV. Get them talking about, okay, we're under new management, and then get them to apologize for the past, but really apologize. Say, look, we did it really badly. We ran public services into the ground. We have to take responsibility for that. That was a disaster. You'd actually, you would piss off a lot of Tories, but you would actually rebuild some little trust with the public, because people would be like, oh, well, actually, this person is being honest for a change, but they wouldn't do that because they're narcissistic charlatans. They only care about themselves, and they only care about their donors. They don't care about the public. And they can't admit being wrong. They'll never admit being wrong. They'll say, we made mistakes, but they'll never say, we actually you were right about what you're saying about us. They'll never say that. Unless it's like, oh, well, people are saying that we didn't listen, or we didn't implement the policy we promised to implement. We should have deported more people. We should have invested more in Rwanda, stuff like that. No, that's not what people... They know, or some of them know, or maybe does Kemi Badenoch actually know why the Tories lost? I'm starting to question whether she actually knew, whether she actually knows why the Tories lost. Or is it somebody's like telling her constantly, no, it's not because of the economy, it's not about the NHS, it's not about austerity, it's about the message, it's about making promises and not keeping them. Yeah, it's nothing to do with us. It's nothing to do with handing money over to the richest in society. We're almost at the end of the stream, so I just want to cover one or two more stories here. God. I have to cover a few stories of Trump before we finish, but these are just insane. So it says here, Donald Trump will start... Here we go. This is from The National in Scotland. It says, Donald Trump will start shitting on Scotland if John Sweeney and the SNP government attract his attention, a former White House aide of the US president has said. Anthony Scaramucci said Trump honestly doesn't give a shit about Scotland despite his roots in the country. Well, that sounds reasonable. I think that's probably quite true. He doesn't give a crap about Scotland. He pretends to care about Scotland, but if... when he's in Scotland, he wants to be treated like a king, and he will find people in Scotland who care, who will do that. But when it comes to the Scottish administration, he doesn't give a shit. He doesn't know who they are. He wouldn't be able to find Scotland on a map unless it was pointed out to him. So I don't think there's really that much. Now, of course, what are we going to see? We're going to see the Scottish Tories and others who support Trump say, oh, no, you need to pander to him. You need to reach out to Trump. He's the one we need to listen to. God, you need to do what he says. Have a look at this.
They're very dangerous people. They're violent people. I used to say these are more violent than our criminals. In fact, the best part about them is they make our criminals look quite nice, actually, by comparison. They are very violent people. We also have many violent criminals in our country, however, that did not necessarily come here illegally, but have been arrested 30 times, 35 times, 41, 42 times in a couple of cases, 25 times, 18 times, many for murder.
27 times, 42 times.
Other heinous charges such as pushing people into subways. As the train's coming along at 45 miles an hour, boom, you get pushed into the subway. They had it last week. Hitting them in the head with baseball bats while they're not looking. Punching old ladies in the face, knocking them unconscious and stealing their purse. They even break into apartments and rape.
Sorry, is he talking about the people who he let out of prison recently, or is he talking about somebody else?
Elderly women and beat up elderly men, beat them to hell. And I don't want these violent repeat offenders in our country any more than I want illegal aliens from other countries who misbehave. And I say, and this is subject to getting it approved, but if they've been arrested many, many times, they're repeat offenders by many numbers, I want them out of our country. I also will be seeking permission to do so. We're going to get approval, hopefully, to get them the hell out of our country along with others. Let them be brought to a foreign land and maintained by others for a very small fee as opposed to being maintained in our jails.
So he's going to deport Americans, I believe. He's going to deport people who have committed crimes in America, who are American citizens, to other countries. It's like, okay. Does that include convicted felons? I don't know. Is he going to deport himself as well? He's like, deport everyone. No, it doesn't matter if they're a felon or not. Everyone has to be deported. Anyone who's committed any crime, including yourself, Mr. President. Oh, crap. Damn, I shouldn't have signed that executive order. Yeah, Guantanamo Bay Light. He's insane. But it's not so much he's insane, it's the people around him are even more insane. We're almost at the end of the lives. I just wanted to cover this one as well. This is quite funny.
Okay, so this is hilarious. I just saw this white lady on here complaining that she just lost her job because she was hired under the diversity, equity, and inclusion program at her work. And you can see she didn't want to say it, but she really wanted to be like, but I'm not black. But that's not what diversity, equity, inclusion meant. The number one recipient of DEI hires is white women. The number one people who have benefited the most from this whole affirmative action and DEI hired has been white women, 100%. And now all these white women who voted for Donald Trump are going to find out that DEI included them. And I'm sorry, but this is one of the best fuck around and find out moments yet, because these women are the ones who deserve to be fired. I'm sorry, like, if you voted for Donald Trump and you get fired because you were a DEI hire, don't come looking to me for sympathy.
Oh my goodness. So I presume this is true. I presume that this is actually happening, that there are people who thought, well, yeah, Donald Trump is going to kick out all these wokies. And then they realize, wait a minute, I was hired under this program as well. Now I'm going to get fired. But Donald, I voted for you. It doesn't matter anymore. Lee, thank you so much for that super chat. Hi, Max. I'm a trans guy, and I'm scared that his ideas are going to be copied in other countries. What do you think? Love to you and yours. Thank you so much, Lee. Great to see you on the stream. Thanks for that super chat. I think there are people who want to copy this in the UK, for example, Elijah Farage and others. But I think if the copying was to begin, it would have happened already. But it's not happening yet. So I think there's a little bit of hope. There's a bit of hope here that it's not going to be copied in the UK or in other countries, because it's going to be exposed as an absolute disaster, his policies. And he's talking about imposing tariffs. He's talking about deporting people who are citizens. That's not going to work. He has won a little bit of a victory when it came to Colombia, but I think this is actually going to drive people in the arms of other places like the EU and China. This is going to drive a lot of people into the arms of China, because they'll be like, hey, we can't deal with this guy. He's an absolute lunatic. And he's not willing to negotiate in a sound way. So this is actually going to, we saw it with, was it, I think it was it Mexico? No, it wasn't Mexico and the EU. There was a country in South America, I believe, and the EU. They signed a deal as soon as Donald Trump had been elected. They were like, okay, yeah, we need to sign a deal. So that I think we're going to see better cooperation. Because, for example, when it comes to NATO, there's the chance that the US will pull out of NATO, or at least reduce its funding to NATO. I don't think that's going to happen because of the military industrial complex. It's so powerful in the US, and Trump would suffer as a consequence of pulling out of a lot of the investment that goes into that. But he's definitely throwing his weight around, and I think this is actually going to, ironically, drive nations closer together as opposed to driving them apart. Putin supported the idea of Brexit because he thought it would fragment Europe. And to a certain extent it did. But after Brexit, what did we see? We saw greater cooperation, in some ways in Europe. And when it comes to Trump in the White House, it's actually going to result in maybe greater cooperation militarily in Europe, on the in the continent of Europe, between the EU and the UK. So it's going to have the opposite effect of what Putin wanted, because Trump is just frightening people off. He's like a bully. You can try and engage the bully, or you can form a team and stay, and resist the bully. And I think that's what we're going to see. Colombia was bullied, yes. And I think it's going to have a chilling effect. It's going to have an effect on other countries. They're going to go, okay, we need to pander to this guy, or we need to run in the opposite direction, run into the arms of, for example, China. And I think China is definitely benefiting from Trump being an absolute lunatic. He tried to bully Denmark too. And that's why it's important that Denmark put troops in Greenland and showed, no, we're not going to be bullied. I don't see war taking place, but they have to show that they're not going to be bullied by Trump. Because the best way of dealing with a bully is to stand up to the bully. But, if you're a small country, it's difficult, but you need to have allies behind you. It's like a rerun of the 1940s and 1930s. So guys, dealing with bullies. So we're almost at the end of the stream. I want to say thank you so much to everyone who came on tonight. Thank you to the moderators for a wonderful job as always. Thanks to everyone who sent a super chat. Once again, happy birthday to Tiny Demolition Lover. Before we finish, we have our one for the road. I hope you will enjoy this. I'm sure you will.
Would you fucking look at that? Irish employees work harder than UK workers, new study claims. I have never been more disgusted with the Irish people. How are we allowing the UK to beat us at laziness? This nation used to pride itself on getting paid too much to do fuck all. Now look at us, being herded like sheep onto fucking Zoom so we can circle back on yesterday's meeting. Where's the rebellious spirit? Putting a poxy fucking desk in your bedroom so you can work from home. One of my friends got a standing desk because he didn't like how he felt sitting down all day. What the fuck do you mean? Will you sit down to fuck? I believe that the Irish people can return to the glory days of the 90s. 5-bedroom detached houses, 2 random statues of a lion outside. Without ever understanding our job or paying a cent of our mortgage. Follow me, I'm just...
He's right. So guys, have a great week. I'll see you on Friday, same bad time, same bad channel. Stay safe, take care, and good night.